I didn't know favoritism had a smell until I was 10 years old and the entire house smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. That day, my mother had spent hours baking cookies for my sister Sienna's second-grade art showcase. She wore pearls and lipstick and called Sienna our little prodigy. My father even left work early to attend. They beamed in every picture. No one came to my math tournament the next day. They weren't cruel. That's the part I need you to understand. It's easier when people are clearly villains when they yell or hit or leave, but my parents weren't those people. They fed me, clothed me, gave me a roof, and they told me often that I was so dependable. The kind of praise that sounds like love until you realize it's just code for we don't have to worry about you. My name is Delaney Hart, and I was the child who didn't need much, or so I was told. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in a modest two-story house with faded shutters and an old maple tree out front. My parents, Russell and Linda Hart, were middle class in the traditional sense, reliable jobs, modest vacations, meatloaf on Mondays. My father was a logistics manager. My mother taught piano part-time and kept a spotless house. And then there was Sienna. Sienna was 6 years younger than me. Honey blonde, quick to smile, the kind of child strangers complimented in grocery stores. If I was a still lake, she was a glittering fountain. When I was 12, I saved up weeks of allowance and birthday money to buy a used TI-83 calculator for advanced math. When Sienna was 12, she got point shoes imported from France. My parents never hid it. They didn't say she was their favorite, but they didn't need to. They showed it in who got forgiven, who got praised, and who got expected to understand. Sienna's just sensitive, my mom would say when she slammed her door during an argument. You're the older one, my dad reminded me again and again. She looks up to you. They never noticed when I stopped looking back. In high school, I started working after school at a neighborhood grocery store. I said it was for gas money, but really it was because I'd learned early asking for anything meant hearing about Sienna's needs first. She needed ballet lessons, braces, art supplies, a weekend trip to Chicago for a fashion workshop. I needed new sneakers. I got a BOGO coupon. When Sienna turned 16, my parents gave her their used Lexus. When I turned 16, I got driving lessons taught by my dad's size and a used Civic I paid off in monthly installments. And I didn't complain. I learned to be reasonable. The girl who didn't need much, who smiled when Sienna opened gifts twice the size of mine, who clapped when she got picked as homecoming runner-up, who moved out at 20 with no fuss. By 35, I had a decent life. I worked as a marketing coordinator for a healthcare company, rented a small one-bedroom apartment near downtown, and still chipped away at the $68,000 in student loans I'd carried since college. I didn't travel often, I didn't splurge, but I could afford dinner out once in a while, and I had enough in savings to feel almost secure. And I had Marissa, my best friend since undergrad, the kind of person who remembered your birthday and how you took your coffee. She used to joke that I was the calmest storm she ever met. Still, sometimes I'd stare at my bank app on a Tuesday night counting down the days till payday, wondering what it would feel like to not have to calculate everything. What would it feel like, I used to ask myself, if something actually went my way? It was a gray afternoon just after daylight savings ended. I'd stopped to get gas. I was tired, mentally reviewing whether I could afford name-brand detergent or not. And then I saw at the glowing display screen above the register. $2.5 million jackpot. I bought the ticket without thinking. The cashier smiled. You never know, right? I didn't answer. I just tucked the ticket between a receipt and my debit card. It wasn't the first time I'd bought a lottery ticket. I wasn't one of those people who played every week, but maybe 2-3 times a year, usually when the jackpot made the news, or I was feeling particularly worn out by life. That Tuesday, I was just tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from carrying a quiet weight for too long. I pumped $20 worth of gas, just enough to get me through the week, and added the ticket at checkout without fanfare. The clerk handed it over and said, You never know. I smiled, but I didn't believe her. People like me didn't win. People like Sienna did. I tucked the ticket into my wallet and forgot about it. That night, I microwaved leftover soup and sat down with my laptop to scroll through news headlines. The TV murmured in the background, white noise mostly. Then came the lottery drawing. I almost didn't reach for the ticket, but something made me pause. I read the first number. Matched, second number. Matched again. By the third match, I was no longer breathing. The fourth, fifth, sixth, I stared at the ticket, then the screen, then back again, over and over. I opened a calculator app, double-checked the date opened, Google searched the official numbers. I even pulled out a flashlight to make sure I wasn't misreading anything. It was real. $2.5 million before taxes. I sat completely still. The world didn't shift, but something in me did. After maybe 20 minutes, I called Marissa. She picked up on the first ring. "Lainey, what's wrong? My voice cracked. "I think you should come over. I'm not kidding. Please just come." She showed up in 20 minutes wearing her college sweatshirt and holding 2 chocolate bars. "Okay," she said gently. "Talk to me." I held out the ticket. She looked at it, then looked at me, then looked it up. And then she started to cry. "Oh my God. Oh my God, Lainey. It's real." That night we didn't sleep. We made coffee at 2 a.m. and talked about everything I never let myself hope for. Paying off my student loans, buying a house with actual windows and no upstairs neighbors, starting a little foundation, maybe helping first-gen college kids like me, not to impress anyone, not to show them, just because I could. The next morning I called in sick and followed the process on the Lottery Commission's website. Marissa drove me my hands shook too much to handle the wheel. They verified the ticket, my identity, took my picture with the ceremonial check, explained the tax implications, the lump sum versus annuity. They didn't give me the money that day, it would take a few weeks. But they gave me something else, a warning. Tell as few people as possible. People change when they think you owe them something. I nodded. I believed them. It took me 4 days to decide to tell them. 4 days of lying awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing my mother's voice from years ago. "You should have let Sienna have the first slice. She gets so emotional when things aren't fair." I didn't owe them anything. I knew that. But part of me, a stubborn, tired part, still wanted to be seen. Not thanked, not praised, just seen. Maybe this, I thought, would finally do it. Sunday dinners at my parents' house were a tradition we kept, even if they never felt like homecomings. My mother would cook the same meals she always had: roast chicken potatoes, a side salad no one ate. My father would ask how work was going, then pivot the conversation to Sienna. I arrived early that day, brought flowers out of habit, helped Mom set the table. "You seem different today," she said, looking at me like she was trying to solve a puzzle. I smiled. "Something happened at work. Kind of." She raised an eyebrow but didn't press. "Dad came in with the usual, that plumbing issue still bothering your apartment. Funny how they never offered to help when I couldn't afford the repairs, I thought." Once we sat down, I cleared my throat. "I have some news," I said. "Something big." They looked up. Forks paused midair. I won the lottery. Silence. A full beat of it. Then, what my dad said, stunned. "The state lottery." I matched all 6 numbers. "It's real." My mother gasped. She stood and hugged me, actually hugged me. My father laughed. "That's incredible, Lainey. That's amazing." I smiled, surprised at how warm it felt. For about 30 seconds. Then Mom added, "Wait until Sienna hears this." Right on cue, the front door opened. Sienna Hart, age 29, floated in like she was being filmed. Sunglasses on top of her head, tote bag slung just so. "Sorry I'm late, traffic was a nightmare." "What did I miss, Mom?" Practically tripped over herself. Delaney won the lottery. $2.5 million, Sienna's smile spread wide. "Shut up, Lainey, that's insane. We're gonna have so much fun with this." I blinked. "We?" Before I could respond, Dad cleared his throat. "Actually, this is perfect timing. Sienna's been having some struggles with the business." She gave a small, rehearsed frown. "It's not a big deal, really. She's $32,000 in credit card debt," Dad continued. "And the inventory loan Dad pleased Sienna cut in." Then to me, with a sheepish grin, "I mean, if you were thinking about helping family, I wouldn't say no." I set my fork down. "I haven't even received the money yet," I said carefully. "There's a process. I need to meet with financial advisors." "It's not complicated," Dad interrupted. "Family helps family." Mom chimed in. And with that kind of money, you can afford to give Sienna a fresh start. I looked at them, really looked. No one had asked me what I planned to do. No one had asked what this meant for me. Just Sienna's debts, Sienna's dreams, Sienna's fresh start. What about mine, I said. What about the years I spent living paycheck to paycheck? What about the loans I'm still paying? Dad frowned. Don't be selfish, Delaney, Sienna added, almost hurt. If I'd won, I would have shared. The laugh caught in my throat. 3 years ago, Sienna got a small inheritance from our grandmother. She used it on a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. No one saw a dime. But of course, this wasn't about logic. It never was. I left early, drove home in silence, the windows down, the cool air, doing nothing to settle my nerves. They were already passing the money around before I'd even finished my sentence. And by the time the chicken was wrapped in foil and sent home with Sienna, it was clear I hadn't brought good news. I'd just brought a resource. They didn't text that night, not even to say thank you. By Monday morning, I had 3 unread messages, none from Sienna. Mom talked to your father. We think $50K is more than fair to help your sister. Let us know when you're ready. Dad, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Mom, again, we raised you better. At lunch, I sat in my car in the office parking lot rereading the texts. $50,000, like they were negotiating over furniture. I thought about how many nights I'd eaten pasta with ketchup, how I'd once put off a dentist appointment for 2 years because I couldn't afford the copay. And now I had something they wanted, and somehow I was still the one being told to behave. That night, I called Marissa. She listened, said nothing for a full minute. Then finally, this money doesn't make you selfish. It gives you permission. Permission to what? To stop explaining yourself. I didn't respond, but I knew she was right. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I told them no. It wasn't dramatic. I wrote a message, reread it 5 times, then hit send. I'm not comfortable giving out money right now. I need time and space to figure out how to handle this responsibly. I hope you'll respect that. Simple. Even gentle. An hour passed. Then the group chat lit up like dry brush under a match. Mom, wow, Dad, after everything we've done for you, Sienna. So I guess we're just strangers now. Mom, you used to be the good one. I stared at the screen, not angry, just still. I started making changes. I set up an appointment with a financial advisor, Ms. Kinley, sharp-eyed, unflinching. She walked me through options. Asset protection, estate planning. Treat it like a business, she said. That's how you stay sane. I opened a new bank account, moved my direct deposits, rented a safe deposit box, and transferred all important documents, my original lottery ticket payout paperwork, passport, birth certificate. I even got a new P.O. box just in case. I wasn't scared. I was just tired of being reachable. A week later, I opened my front door after work and found a package on my doormat. Inside a manila folder, no return address. Inside that, a printed spreadsheet from Sienna titled Debt and Restructuring Plan. Every line was color-coded. There were columns for what she owes now and what she could accomplish with Delaney's support. At the bottom, she had written, I'm not asking. I'm just hoping you'll remember who always believed in you. I folded the page in half and put it in the recycling bin. Not torn, not burned. Just out of reach. I didn't block their numbers, didn't change my locks, didn't cut them off. I just stopped answering. And for the first time in years, my silence felt like something solid. They stopped texting. For 3 days, nothing. No emojis, no guilt, no group chat buzz at 7:13 a.m. I let myself believe it might be over. Saturday morning, I walked into my apartment and froze. The air was wrong, still, but unsettled. The hallway light was on, my kitchen drawer was open, and the manila folder with my lottery documents gone. I turned in place. Front door locked, no broken windows, but I knew. The spare key, I'd forgotten about the one I left in the planter outside my parents' house for emergencies years ago. I never asked for it back. I called Marissa. She didn't ask if I was sure. She just said, I'll be there in 10. We didn't scream. We didn't panic. We walked through the apartment like we were cataloging the scene of a quiet betrayal. Nothing else was missing. Just that folder, my legal documents, my verification letter. The ceremonial check giant laminated cheesy meant for photo ops. They hadn't taken money. They'd taken proof. Later that day, I got a text from Mom. "We need to talk. Things are moving too fast." Then another. "No one's trying to hurt you. We're just trying to protect the family from bad choices." No apology, no acknowledgement. Just soft control dressed as care. I drove to their house that evening, not because I wanted to argue, but because I needed to look them in the eye and see what kind of people could do this. Mom opened the door like nothing was wrong. "Delaney," she smiled. "We were just making tea." The living room was unchanged, same doilies, same ticking clock. The folder sat neatly on the coffee table unopened. "I'm taking that back," I said. Dad looked up from his chair. "We didn't read anything." Mom added, "We were just concerned." "You've always been impulsive when it comes to big decisions." I laughed. Not loud, not bitter, just airless. I've never been impulsive in my life. They didn't fight me for the folder. But as I turned to leave, my father said, "You know, if you'd handled this better, you'd still have a family at your back." I didn't answer, because I didn't need to. That night, I changed my locks, not out of fear, but because some lines, when crossed, don't lead back to the same place. I didn't tell them I'd changed the locks. I didn't tell anyone. That Sunday, I skipped dinner, let my phone buzz and buzz until it stopped. At 9:44 p.m., a voicemail came in from Sienna. "Hey, just so you know, I think Mom and Dad are getting worried. You're not answering, and you've never been like that before. Maybe just let them in a little. Okay? It's not like you're being robbed." I stared at the message for a long time. Not angry, not sad, just hollow. Tuesday morning, I came home early from work. The city was quiet, overcast, the kind of day that pressed in around the edges. As I turned the key and stepped inside, I noticed something immediately. The back window was cracked open. I froze. The living room smelled like burned plastic, and then I saw it. The trash can, pulled into the center of the kitchen floor, ashes inside, still smoldering. At the top of the pile, curling black at the edges, was the ceremonial lottery check. It hadn't all burned, just enough to send a message. I didn't scream. I didn't call the police. I sat down on the floor right there beside the trash and laughed. It was quiet, dry, not even bitter, because they thought they'd done something permanent. They thought they had ruined something, but they didn't understand one thing. The real check, the only check that mattered, never came through the front door. That check had been wired directly into a financial trust under my name with 3 levels of legal insulation. The physical one, it was for TV, for their pride. They hadn't burned my future, just the photo of it. The next morning, I sent one text I know about the trash can. No one replied, not even Sienna. I met with my attorney that Thursday. Ms. Kinley sat across from me with her usual sharp poise. "You said they entered without consent." "Yes," she tapped her pen. "I can file a cease and desist, even a restraining order depending on how far this escalates." I shook my head. "Not yet. You don't have to protect them." "I'm not," I said. "I'm protecting the part of me that still wants this to be something it's not." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded once. That weekend, I boxed up everything with their handwriting on it. Birthday cards, childhood notes, even a scrapbook Mom made when I turned 10. I didn't burn it. I didn't throw it away. I just put it in storage under the stairs and closed the door. Marissa came over with wine and silence. She sat with me while we watched reruns of cooking shows and didn't say a word about the smell of smoke still lingering in the curtains. At one point, she looked at me sideways. "You okay?" I nodded. "They thought it would break me." And I smiled. Small, tight. Turns out some fires just show you where the exits are. A week later, a letter came in the mail, handwritten. No return address, just one line inside. "You made this impossible." No signature. But I knew the handwriting. It was my mother's. I folded it neatly, placed it beside the box under the stairs. Didn't cry, didn't shake. There was nothing left to save in that sentence. I didn't block them. Not because I was hoping they'd change. Not because I wanted reconciliation, but because I needed silence to mean something. Not absence, just peace. A month passed. The news had stopped spreading. No more texts. No more spreadsheet proposals from Sienna. No more birthday reminders from my mother disguised as concern. Just the soft, stunning quiet of a life unhooked. I started waking up before my alarm, watered my plants with both hands, cooked meals that didn't come from a microwave. I picked up an old habit I'd buried somewhere in my 20s reading, historical fiction mostly. Women who lived lives no one wrote down. I liked the quiet bravery of those stories, not loud, just firm. Like stone beneath soil. One Friday morning, Marissa dropped by with 2 lattes and a flyer. "Don't laugh," she said. "But I saw this and thought of you." It was a small writing workshop, just 4 sessions at the library downtown. Memoir and memory, how to hold what hurt. I almost tossed it in the junk pile out of reflex, but then I turned it over. Someone had handwritten a quote on the back. "Telling the truth isn't revenge, it's release." I signed up that night. The group was small, a widow, a former nurse, a man who hadn't spoken to his brother in 12 years. No one came to fix each other. We just wrote. I told my story for the first time. Not about the check, not about the fire, not even about the silence. I wrote about the girl who got left off the family slideshow, who was told she was strong every time she cried in private, who paid her way through college while her sister changed majors 3 times on their parents' dime, and when I read it aloud, no one said anything for a full minute. Then the widow's soft, trembling hands just nodded. I thought it was just me. I'm not estranged. That word always sounded so sharp, so tabloid. No, I'm just free. Free from keeping score in a game I never joined. Free from trying to earn crumbs at a table I was born into. Free to start over without explanation. Sometimes I still wonder what they say about me now. But then I fold a clean sheet of paper, uncap my pen, and write the next line anyway. Because finally, the story belongs to me. It came on a Thursday. Subject line: "Sorry, I guess." The sender Sienna.hearteggmail.com. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was nervous to open it, but because I didn't expect anything from her anymore. And somehow that made it harder to look. "Delaney, I don't know what I'm doing with this. I've been thinking a lot. I was mad at you. I still might be. But maybe that's not fair. You were always so calm, and I took that as distance. But maybe it was just you surviving us. I don't want money. I want to know if you think I'm a bad person." I read it twice. Then a third time. It wasn't an apology. Not really. It was a door. Just slightly open. I didn't reply. Not because I was punishing her, but because some doors before you walk through them require you to know who you are on the other side. And I wasn't ready to go backward. I archived the email. Didn't delete it. Just put it somewhere it could sit for a while without pressing against my chest. My apartment has never been quieter. No voices rising from the hallway. No calls from numbers I recognize but no longer answer, just the hum of the fridge, the rhythm of my own breath, the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty anymore. I started keeping a journal, not every day, not because I'm trying to track healing, just when a moment feels too real to pass by unnoticed. Like last Tuesday when I stood at the checkout line and didn't have to check my account first. Or last Sunday when I drove past my parents' neighborhood and didn't turn in. Not because I was angry, but because I no longer needed anything from that street. I still think about Sienna sometimes. Her email, her voice behind the door. All that need wrapped up in charm. But mostly I think about the girl I used to be. The one who kept the peace by keeping quiet. And how somehow not answering became its own kind of reply. I changed my email last week. Not because of spam, not because of fear, just because I realized it was the last door they could still knock on. I didn't forward the old messages, didn't save the contacts, didn't write a goodbye. Some things deserve a closing that doesn't echo, and some stories end best when no one gets to rewrite them. If you've ever walked away without slamming the door, I see you. You don't have to explain, just leave the light off.